Our next teller comes to us from Asheville, North Carolina. Whether performing at the National Storytelling Festival before thousands or in front of a small group of wide-eyed children, audiences savor each sentence and anxiously anticipate the next. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome David Novak.
So I hopped into bed with my youngest son, Jordan, and asked him what did he want a story about. He looked around and he said, I don't know, the pillow. Okay. Once there was a pillow. It lied around in bed all day long. All night long, it stayed in bed. In the nighttime, it would hold a head in its lap. And while the head was sleeping, the pillow would look out the window at the stars, at the moon, at the raindrops on the window pane, at the lightning flashing, at the wide world beyond. In the daytime, the head would get up and go away, but the pillow would just stay there in bed and look out the window at the sky and the clouds, at the trees and the birds and the wide world beyond. And so it went on this way, lying in bed all the time, day in and day out. And after a while, the pillow began to think to itself, there must be something more than lying around in bed all day. There is something out there that I long for, and I do not know what it is. One day, the head left the window open when it left the room. And the pillow looked out the window and felt a cool breeze come in from the out air. And as it was looking at the window, a black crow alighted on the windowsill. It hopped into the room. It hopped onto the bed. It hopped up to the pillow. And then it pecked the pillow and pulled from the pillow a fine feather and flew off. The next day, the same thing happened. The crow came to the window, hopped onto the bed, and pecked at the pillow and pulled again another feather from it and flew off with it. And soon the pillow had a hole in it. And its little feathers were falling out and flying out and being caught up by the breeze all by and of themselves. And the pillow thought, this is what I was meant for. This is my destiny, to fly and float free. And it was blown out of the window, free of its casing, no longer weighed down by the weary head, out into the world, floating free and happy, lining the nest of little birds and drifting down rivers and streams and tickling children in the ears and loving life. The head, meanwhile, finding the pillowcase flat, replaced it with a foam pillow, the hypoallergenic kind. It had the best night's sleep it had ever known. See, one of the habits, I was about to say hazards, of telling stories is a kind of development of a sort of animism. You see, it doesn't take long, once you're in the realm of fairy tales and folk tales, to begin to see the world as being animate. I mean, storytelling is a form of animation, and in a sense, this is an animation festival. In the true sense of the word, for to animate is to give life to, and that's what's really happening up here. But the thing is, it doesn't take long before you begin to look around you and see the possibility that everything could have sentience, could have a soul, could have a point of view, an attitude, an idea of the world from its own perspective. A pillow, a chair. a microphone even, perhaps. I mean, let us imagine. Look at it there. Standing there, eagerly. Almost like a dog begging for scraps from the table. Feeding off the sounds of our voices. And it's, in a sense, our job to come up here and feed the dear thing. I mean, that's what happens, you see. It becomes a habit of the storyteller. Sometimes that habit can be handy and useful. One day I had to get Jordan into the car to get us off somewhere very important. I can't recall exactly where it was. Something to do with school, I'm certain. And so I was trying to get him into the car, and I was all caught up in that parental thing of time and destination and hurrying and worrying, and he was all caught up in the moment, staring at the star-like clusters of leaves on the Japanese maple by the sidewalk. And I didn't want to become angry, and I didn't want to have to force him into the car. I kept saying, come on, come on. So I turned to the storyteller's toolbox, and I decided I would try to lure him into his seat in the car. I had the door open, I was looking at his car seat, and there were the car seat buckles, and so I just engaged them in conversation. I said, I'm sorry, guys. Looks like you're not going to get a chance to hold on to Jordan today. And of course, they spoke back. Oh man, that's too bad. We were really looking forward to seeing him. We haven't seen him in a long time, and we've been sitting in this hot, stuffy car. Man, I want to go somewhere. Come on, no. It's really nice whenever he's around. We get to hug on to him, and he gets to talk to us and everything, and we get to figure out all sorts of stuff from him. And I'm talking to the car seat buckles, you see. And so Jordan gets interested in this conversation I'm having, and he realizes that the buckles are anxious to spend some time with him, and so he says, oh, don't worry, I'm coming, and he gets into the car, and I get him buckled in. Okay, hang on, put your arm over here. Okay, I got you. Hey, it's good to see you. Hey, wake up down there, Ralphie. I don't know why his name was Ralphie, but the third buckle down there had to come up in and buckle in. Okay, all right, now we're ready to go. All right, let's go. And so I had accomplished my task. I got Jordan in the car seat. But I'd also brought to life the buckles. So now, as I'm driving along, Jordan's having a conversation with the car seat buckles, and I have to keep them alive and with him and attentive to him all the while that I'm driving. So here I am, driving down the road and throwing my voice back over the seat while Jordan's talking to the buckles, and the buckles are talking to him, and I'm discovering that they actually have a personality, and they have a sort of attitude, and they have a problem, too. See, they don't get out very much. So they don't really know much about the world outside, and they look to Jordan to explain things to them. So it gives me this opportunity to engage in kind of Socratic dialogues with little Jordan in the back seat, because the buckles say, hey, where are we going today? Oh, we're going to go to school. Oh, right, that's great, that's good. Yeah, what's a school? Oh, well, it's a place where you learn things. Oh, you learn things. Like, what can you learn? Like what? Oh, like numbers. Oh, that sounds great. What's a number? And so it goes on like that, you see. So we're having all of these conversations driving down the road, and so things become animated all around us, and we live in this kind of story realm. As now I sometimes find myself kind of immobilized by the idea that everything around me might have an opinion of something. It becomes hard to do things. It becomes hard to wash the dishes. It becomes really hard to weed the garden, because I'm pulling plants and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I know you're only a weed because I don't want you. And it's around this time that I got a really bad toothache, and it's throbbing in my jaw. And I'm popping Tylenol and lying in bed, and I'm feeling this throbbing thing happening inside me. And as I'm lying in bed, I'm realizing that I probably have some kind of infection, in my mouth, in my tooth. And that would mean that there's probably like foreign bacteria, right, trying to colonize my jaw. And so I become aware that I am this kind of North America being invaded by the British. Right? And I began to feel really creepy, because like there's these things living in my jaw and multiplying and breaking down and causing me pain. So I finally get to the dentist, and the dentist does x-rays, and he comes to the conclusion that what's happening really in my mouth and my tooth is something called root resorption. All right? And he explains that it's not an infection. It's actually a kind of an autoimmune response to my root. It's my body is attacking the root. So I walk away thinking, why am I having such a hard time getting along with myself? What did I do to myself that I should have this little civil war happening in my jaw? And eventually, somehow, a détente was reached because after a while, whatever it was my immune system was trying to extract from my root was satisfied, and it stopped causing me pain, and I was able to deal with that. But in the whole time that I'm thinking about this, I begin to have this breakdown in my own self-identity. Like, who am I? Which side am I on, right? Am I on one side or another? Now, I know I'm feeling pain, but I'm also causing that pain. Now, this is a very difficult situation that we've all probably been in at some point, where we're causing ourselves pain and not understanding why we're feeling the pain and yet causing it at the same time, right? Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself? So I'm looking into learning about root resorption, and I'm learning about infection, and I'm reading about the human biome. You see, it turns out, I know tomorrow night's ghost stories, but I'm going to tell you this anyway, Douglas. It turns out our body is habitat for myriad microorganisms. The human biome. In fact, there are 10 times as many microorganisms inhabiting our bodies as there are human cells. Human cells, those are the cells that you were born with when the egg was fertilized and began to subdivide into more subdivisions and more subdivisions, becoming what you thought was you. In short order, all of those cells really become an ecosystem for microorganisms that all come along and play a very important role. Now, my wife is in health and wellness field, and she's constantly going on with me about the importance of probiotics, right? Well, this is an age of tolerance, and I'm glad to see that that's something that we're all in favor of. We are learning to be tolerant and not xenophobic. And so, yes, I even ingest probiotics. I bring more microorganisms into my body to help the ones that are already there continue doing whatever it is they're doing that somehow is sustaining me, but I'm also beginning to lose sight of where I end and the rest of the world begins. Who am I anyway? I mean, I realize that with 10 times as many microorganisms making me up, my own sense of self, it comes into question. Who is it that is thinking it is me? Is it my human cellular structure, or is it some conglomerate of microorganisms, like some franchised micro-manufacturing corporate body that is making the decisions that I thought I was making, but now I don't even know who I am? The world is beginning to fall apart. See, this is this is a hazard of the storytelling imagination. So I'm really falling apart and losing sight of where or whether I am anything or anywhere, and feeling very much alienated from everything. And I'm driving in the car, and with my split personality, continuing to throw my voice over my shoulder to my son Jordan, and we're going to the preschool opening pizza party where the community is gathering and all the families are meeting each other and the teachers and everyone. And so Jordan hops into the car seat and says, "Hi guys," and he's talking to the belt buckles over my shoulder. And so, "Oh yeah, hey, how you doing, guy? Hey, it's good to see you, it's great to have you here. Yeah, where are we going today? What are we doing today?" "Oh, we're going to a pizza party," he says. "Pizza, oh yeah, that's great, yeah, what's a pizza?" Well, it's something that you eat. Oh, yeah, well, like, what is eating? We don't eat stuff, Well, I mean, it's like, food. You put it in your mouth and it helps you to grow and it makes you strong and everything. Oh, well, okay, I think we can get a handle on that. Yeah. What's it made of? And he thinks for a moment, then he says, God. And the belt buckles don't know what to say to that. And then he says, isn't that right, Dad? I'm just driving the car, I'm the chauffeur. I don't know what's going on back there in the back seat. So I say, I'm sorry, what? Isn't what right? He says, isn't pizza made of God? And I begin to think, well, what kind of conversation about God do I want to have with my son on our way to the pizza party? And I'm beginning to think about this conclusion he's drawn, and I'm looking out at the world and I'm thinking, well, ideas of God abound, but I think most thinkers agree, most theologians would agree, theists, I would say, would agree that God is somehow a force that permeates everything, all being, all nature, everywhere. In a sense, God is the animus of everything. So therefore, I say, why yes, pizza is made of God. And I'm driving down the road, and the world becomes luminous, numinous. The rocks and stones themselves begin to sing. And suddenly, I know who I am. I know who we are. And it's a good story. Thanks.